Hi, my name is Letty Dogheart. I'm the owner and operator of Flying Dogheart Farm. Letty means to fly in Bosnian, and Dogheart is me and how I walk. In 2018, I began farming as an intern for Mudbone Grown with Arthur and Shantae as a response to me learning herbal practice here in the Pacific Northwest under white teachers who were big supporters of mountain rose herb, knowing that there was a boycott against them. They didn't share that information while I was in the herb program, and when I later learned about it, I confronted them and they said boycotts don't work. And so I decided to become a farmer to grow my own herbs because I want folks to have their medicine back in their own hands. And now there are a number of black and brown herb farmers here in Portland. We're in community and we share resources, and we also sell herbs in bulk to community and also gift herbs to community and teach folks. So that's one part of Flying Dogheart Farm. As part of reclaiming ancestry, I got into raising rabbits for meat and growing vegetables. And it's just been a way of life ever since. This is our prop house for our cold germination plants. And back here we have our chickens, 6 hens here. And at our other site we have 12 hens for egg production for community. And then here is where we grow all of our produce. 9 30-foot rows. And last year we grew food specifically for low-income families. We did food bags, like a CSA style. We raise rabbits for meat and also teach folks how to process, breed rabbits for backyard rabbitry, and how to use all of the parts of the rabbits. So we have 8 does and 2 bucks, and we have 2 litters of babies right now. So you can see we've got some nibbling on some Brussels sprouts from the garden. I got involved in farming and gardening, actually land work in general, really when I moved to the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Chicago, in Lake City proper, and didn't really have a whole lot of access to outdoors anything. But when I moved to Portland, I fell in love with the land here and felt very called to do land protection work and reconnecting with community and learning more about my family's history. My family comes from Coahuila, which is the northeast or southeast, depending on which side of the border you're on. And you know, on my mom's side, they were rancheros, and before that, they were land tenders. And learning more about our family history and why we are now on Turtle Island and have been displaced from our land has really solidified my commitment to food and land sovereignty work. What do I enjoy about farming? I love to be outdoors. I love how the seasons change and there's always new lessons. Farming is very dynamic. Land work is very dynamic. After doing this for so long, it's only been 8 years, right? Like 8 years of my life of like being on a farm cycle, living with the seasons and like tracking patterns of seasons. I don't want to live another way. I don't think I can live another way now. It's been returning to being human and being of the earth. We are all disconnected, right? Capitalism, imperialism, colonization, this like settler colonial project is designed to keep us separated from each other. We have fences, we have streets that are, on a grid. It is intentionally designed to keep us separated from one another. And urban farming, land work in community are all ways that we can reconnect and really like resist these imposed structures. We don't each need to have a lawnmower. We don't each need to have X equipment. We can share, and that really helps to throw a wrench in the machine that tells us otherwise. The first thing I tell folks when they ask how to get involved, learn about whose land you're on, and then learn about who in those groups are doing work, and start learning from there. Connect with Indigenous people from the lands you live on, connect with their movements, and then do your personal work around dismantling white supremacy and colonial settler mindsets. Learn about your own ancestry. Like this is all of these pieces, right, that come together that help us to see the larger picture. Reading about really radical people who did stuff for community. Learn about the Panthers. Learn about AIM. Learn about what your neighbor is growing in their front yard. If you see somebody who has a really like dynamic growing situation where they live, get to know them and ask them about it. Like, people love to talk about their plants and their plant relationships. Just, I guess, ask questions and really make that effort of like connecting with people. For me, preparing for climate strike, I think the word is nimble. Like, we need to be able to adjust to change. There's already climate change happening. How do we prepare for that here on our farm? The challenges of raising rabbits in a changing climate is that we are losing our rabbits to the high heat domes. So we lost a colony of rabbits. And as a response, I connected with rabbit farmers down in San Antonio, Texas, to chat with them about, like, what do you all do? Because y'all have a different climate than we do here in our changing Pacific Northwest. And I was able to connect with some people who work with Texas A&M and have access to Tamuk rabbits. And so a couple of years back, I went down to San Antonio and picked up some rabbits. And we're now working on breeding our rabbits to be more resilient to the rising temperatures. But something else that we're doing is we're shifting our rabbit breeding cycle. So instead of breeding from spring to fall, we're doing fall to winter. It impacts how we, when we germinate our seeds, what plants that we're incorporating. It also means that we're seed saving more for things that are acclimated to our unpredictable climates. So my seeds from snap peas that can like withstand a frost and then a high heat, like those are really important for us to keep. Having bees also helps us to keep track of like what's blooming and when it's blooming, and things are blooming sooner and they're stopping producing sooner. So these are all parts of that, like why farming and paying attention to land work is important, because we need to start tracking patterns so that we can feed our communities and feed ourselves. Do I see an emerging POC movement? Yeah, I think a big part needs to be given like credit to Arthur and Shantae of Mudbone for like activating a group of people to then activate more people. When we do these really radical acts, we can have a ripple effect. My desire to take down Mountain Rose Herb meant that it was really important to me to find other Black and brown folks that I know who are into herbs, to be like, hey, do you want to farm? Do you want to start a farm business? Do you want to learn how to farm? We should join this program. There are nonprofits that have emerged and community advisory boards that have emerged in the last 8 years around like specifically uplifting Black and brown farmers. Oregon as a state was established as a white haven, and so Black and brown folks were not allowed to own land. And so this is like, yes, there is this ramping up of reclaiming power, reclaiming our connection to land, and healing our wounds that are a direct result of dispossession. There are a lot of us, and we know each other and we talk to each other, and I think that's really powerful. And some folks are kind of afraid of that, and other folks are really inspired by that. And so I'm really very inspired and motivated by like-minded Black and brown folks who have gone into land work and continue to do this work, and also folks who have been doing it for under the radar for years, right? Like there's Pablo Munoz, who's been around for 40 years. Farmers are aging out and we need a new crop of farmers. And also we have so many farmers that have already been busting the sod for us here in Oregon. Farmers of color, indigenous and Black farmers, and African farmers, folks who have, been displaced and come here from Africa. So it's really cool that we have a community here, and that feels really, really lovely. How does Flying Dogheart Farm connect in that movement? I think that sharing information, we share resources, we talk to each other, we follow each other on Instagram and on other social media platforms, and uplift each other. If someone's doing a project, well, like, hey, you should talk to these folks. And then Also, you know, we talk to each other about the best people to work with for selling to, or where's a grant opportunity. There's a lot of this like information sharing, and if like there's a business that's known for not paying their farmers on time or having unrealistic expectations of farmers, that's also information that we share. In dominant culture, it's very common that information sharing is done, and it's not seen as like gossip. But something that happens with Black and Brown community is that we hear that word gossip thrown around quite a bit about the work that we do when we talk to each other. And I just want to let folks know, like, this is how we keep us safe. And I'm a big proponent for the chisme. I didn't come from a farming background. My family worked really hard to disconnect us from that, right? Like, we don't do that anymore. We get educations and we work in offices and we like work on our wealth. I just want folks to know that like you can change your path, and you can change it multiple times, and that's okay. Like, starting over isn't a bad thing. And when Flying Dogheart Farm is no longer a farm business, I will continue to grow food for community. We'll continue to teach what we know. We'll like teach people how to can food and tan hides and process their own rabbits and how to cultivate tomatoes or whatever. Like, I'm happy to continue sharing that, and I hope that our legacy is that folks also take the knowledge and what they learned from us, expand on it, and continue to share. I want everyone to get to know a farmer, and even if you don't become a farmer, you still eat, right? Like, but we all have something that we can contribute, and it doesn't necessarily mean land work. Sometimes it's the like behind the scenes stuff of data entry or the technical support stuff. My sweetie is a really huge asset to the farm, and like all of our infrastructure and documentation, the things that I would rather not do because I just want to be playing out in the dirt. We all have a place in the movement, and just if farming ain't it, it could be something else.